Everybody, how are you? I hope you are having a magnificent Monday because I can tell you that I am, right? This is Taking Control with Aaron, um, formerly known as Anger Management. We didn't like the title, we didn't like that whole phrase of managing anger when we understand that anger is a human emotion that we all deal with, we all have. And so we wanted to change that. We wanted to change that title and look at it a little differently. And so we're talking about taking control. We began this series back in April and sort of put the brakes on because we wanted to be able to make sure that we're giving people best bang for the buck. And the impact that we're looking for is that others can understand this human emotion of anger. So welcome everybody. Promise Resource Network. You know what we do. Wellness and recovery. That's our groove. That's what we like to make sure that we are inserting and bringing into the homes, into the lives of the people that we serve. We're back open, doing classes at 10, 11:30, and 1 o'clock here at 2224 The Plaza. If you go to our webpage, promiseresourcenetwork.org, our calendar is posted on the webpage. If you would call our welcome desk uh, and talk to our buddy Miss Kim Porter at the welcome desk. She's there, hanging out, making sure that someone is there to answer your calls. 704-390-7709. You can also get information about our classes. And so here we are. This is Taking Control every Monday at 1 p.m. And we're looking at how um, anger is shaped, right? We want to explain human anger. We don't want to just manage it. We want to explain it because we all have the propensity. We all have the within us to be able to get to express anger, to feel anger, depending on what it is that we are being angry about, right? And so, what we want to be able to do from this perspective is to talk about anger in such a way that we understand. So, we want to explain human anger, and we're talking about sharing effective anger, right? Sharing effective responses and approaches that improve relationships and life situations. We don't want just anger to just happen. We want to understand it and we want to shape it and we want to move it in such a way that the response to anger is an effective response. We don't want to just be reacting out of our feelings of anger, right? We don't want anger to overwhelm and to control. We want to be able to explain and to be able to share the effective responses and approaches to anger. And here's the deal, right? Because we don't want to destroy good relationships. We don't want to hamper and hurt our life situations because we were not able to control our anger because we didn't understand it. And so that's where we are. That's what we do. So everybody, welcome. Thank you for coming on board. Make sure that you share this. Now, I want to be able to tell you this. Moving forward, what we're looking at doing is making sure that this is an on-site, in-person class. So give Kim a call at 704-390-7709. Give the welcome desk a call and ask him about taking control and being able to sign up or get a message to me that you want to take the class. It is every Monday, 1 p.m. at 2224 The Plaza, taking control. We're going to do something about this. And we're coming out of these times of isolation, right? We're coming out of these times of quarantine and these times of a lack of social engagement. So we had physical and social distancing. Those isolated moments can create the atmosphere where responses of anger are a norm because we've been pent up, we've been closed in. We've seen a lot of situations, right, where numbers have increased about angry responses, where people have reacted to situations and not responded simply because it's been a really tough year. And sometimes we go right instead of left or left instead of right in our decision making, and we don't express. anger in such a way that it is healthy. And because there are healthy expressions of anger, and we find ourselves reacting more than responding. And because of that, we find ourselves in some really tough situations. So if you want to come hang out with me and understand this, and here's the deal, we actually put together a 10-week curriculum that the completion after the 10 weeks, there's a certificate attached to that. And I'm going to go out on a limb and assure you that if you spend those 10 weeks with myself and some of the other facilitators, like my buddy Sharon G, and we're going to spend some time helping you to understand human anger so that you now know that anger is a part of the package, but it's what we do with it, right? And so that's what we want to talk about. So call our welcome desk Monday through Fridays, 8 to 4:30. Get the schedule every Monday at 1. Let Kim know, hey, I want to get in contact with Aaron. I'd like to come to the class. 704-390-7709 is that number. Taking control, explaining human anger, and sharing effective responses and approaches that improve the relationships and life situations to our anger. We want to improve those relationships. We want to have healthy life situations that work for us and not against us. We want doors to be open and not closed. And we want to make sure that this human emotion of anger is expressed in such a way that is not working against us. It's working for us. Okay. So let's talk about a few things. We got some time, right? Going to hang out for a little while. Love to have you on. Don't forget to share. Share this on your social media platform. Please go to our YouTube channel, Promise Resource Network YouTube channel, and hang out. I see my man Dan Meyer is on. Dan, much love to you, good friend. Dan is up in the New York, Jersey area, jumping on. And Dan, thanks for hanging out. Dan, you and I have so much to talk about because since you are Islander fan, you probably express a lot of anger. So we want, Dan, you and I with these sports teams, we want to be able to talk about some good stuff. Dan, good to see you on, my friend. So here's one of the things that we wanted to share today as we talk about taking control, explaining human anger. Many times we have and we experience anger. And the anger many times is a mask. It's a camouflage. It's a mascara. Many times anger is a mask that is hiding some truer feelings. Many times anger is the expression of feelings that have not been expressed. Many times our anger and the expression of anger is hiding some other feelings. And I want to be able to talk about those feelings because when we don't identify those feelings, we wear that label of an angry person. He's just angry. Oh, you look at him, he all angry. Look at her, she all angry, she's all mad. But in reality, underneath those, behind those feelings and expressions of anger are truer feelings, core feelings, right? Innate feelings that we've not been able to express or identify, right? Or sometimes where we don't have the ability to be able to tell you or to tell ourselves what this feeling really is that I'm feeling. And because of that frustration, I'm going to show it this way. You know, you can talk to a child who expresses anger at home, daycare, playground, and you ask the child, why did you do that? Why did you break that? Why did you throw that? Why did you hit him? Why did you hit her? Why are you having this tantrum? And you will often hear from a child, right? I don't know. Hold on. Don't go nowhere. Be right back. You will often hear from a child, I don't know. Guess what? They don't. They don't know. They've not been able to or haven't been taught or have yet to learn how to express what they're feeling. Well, if we as people maturate and we grow older and we have more experiences, but we've never been taught how to express certain feelings, the chances of those feelings coming out, those true feelings, those submersed feelings coming out as anger, the possibility is great. And so for us, it is very important that as we grow in our recovery and we grow in our wellness, that we begin to identify our true feelings, that we begin to talk about our true feelings, that we dig in so that anger is not the expression of something that, watch this, anger is not the expression of something that is not even connected to. And so I want to talk about some of those things today and what that looks like. Join me. Ms. Hedges is on. Good to see you. Thank you for hanging out with us. And my buddy Kim Porter is on. That's my pal. So it's great to have you all on. So hang out with Aaron and let's talk a little bit about identifying our true feelings. Identifying those true feelings that show themselves as anger, but in reality, when we peel back the onion, when we peel back the banana, give me something else to peel back, y'all. When we peel back the orange, what is in the core, what is inside, is not anger at all. Anger was the peel. But once we remove the peel, we see, oh, wow, that's really not it. And I recognize that. I'll tell this story before we begin looking at some of these true feelings and underlying emotions. I had a young man when I worked in the management school in Charlotte. Great young man, great kid. Really enjoyed being a teacher and a mentor for him. And I remember a couple of times when he really his behaviors were so aggressive, right? They were so aggressive to the point of volatile. And he was a young man who struggled in school. I worked at the management school. And so all of the children in the 8th grade site for Charlotte Mecklenburg School, so all of the children that was with me and with our group of teachers and educators, these children were all removed from their regular middle schools because of behavioral discipline issues, right? And so this young man, he lived in Delahey Courts, great guy. If you called him to the board, or if you asked him to read out loud, he would rebel. He would respond in such a way that it was volatile. I mean, he literally, if you ask him, he would turn desk over. He would create a lot of confusion in the class, a lot of chaos. He really did. He was labeled a behavior problem. That was his label, behavioral problem, had a diagnosis and all that stuff. What wasn't identified through conversation, which I later, by just being with him and spending time with him and taking him to games and talking with him, this young man lived as an 8th grader who was supposed to be in 10th grade at the time, lived in a household where he didn't see his mom because she was out all night. That there was a lot of drugs in the house, that he was raising younger siblings, like 3 of them, pretty much. That his family was trying really hard not to be connected as in an adverse way with social services. So this young man was, so here's my point. His feelings of his life situation was never explored. All people knew is that he was always angry. He was always volatile. He was always disruptive. It cost him promotions in school, which is why he was in 8th grade when he should have been in 10th grade. It caused suspensions from school. It created an environment where teachers actually feared him. No one took the time to peel back the anger and to find out what his true feelings was. Embarrassment, frustration, fear. Every night he had to wonder if his mom was going to live or die, and he wouldn't see her for days at a time. My point is, until we peel back the peeling of anger, we'll always only see anger, and anger is usually a camouflage. Anger is usually a cover for something that is an unidentified or unaddressed feeling. So let's dig in, family. Let's talk about it. What are some of the emotions and feelings that we deal with that often we do not identify or talk about? One is fear. One is fear. Some people are just really afraid and scared of life, what life is like, what life presents, what life is given. Many people live in the fear of losing their job, fear of not having enough money, fear of the lump that we found. Right. And so because we often live in fear, fear sometimes robs us of the ability to cope with our emotions. It creates uncertainty in the different areas of our lives, money, raising children, or even where we're going to live. Um, Sometimes we have fear and we just don't know why. It's the one of the anxieties of life, and so we have fear and we express fear and we're afraid, and so because of that, it sometimes shows itself as anger. I'm afraid of what's going to happen, and so if you talk with me, it's going to come out as if I'm mad because one, there's some cultures, right, and some places where you don't show fear. I grew up in one, North Philadelphia. You're not supposed to show fear. So it's easier to project anger because your anger is coming at my anger, and my anger is a bunch of angry people who in reality are just afraid that things aren't going to work out, that dreams will never be fulfilled. When we peel these layers of anger back, we often find it's one of the uh, emotions or feelings that we have a hard time identifying is I'm really afraid. Some of the toughest people you know are actually afraid of what's going to happen and what they're going through. We also find that one of the underlying emotions is anxiousness. People are it's on the other side of fear, and then sometimes it's an overgeneralized feeling. I'm anxious. I don't know what to do, but sometimes if you're afraid, you know that you're afraid. Sometimes when you're anxious, you don't have a reason why you're anxious about things. You just know that you're agitated and you're on edge, anxious about what's going to happen, anxious about the news, anxious about where I'm at. What's my number in the line? Are they gonna give me the job? Is she pregnant? We don't have money. I mean, all of these things make me anxious. It can create some things here. It can create some feelings, and one of the feelings that it shows out is fear. And when I'm afraid, I show anger. So anxiousness is so connected to some of these other feelings. And then when I'm anxious, I may, without knowing how I'm anxious, it's easy to grab hold of anger, fear, anxiousness. It's easy to grab hold of anger to show. It's easy to grab hold of anger when I don't know what to do. It's like crying. Crying also, at times, excuse me, crying can be a release of unknown or unidentified emotions. I'm feeling a certain way, and all I can do is well up and cry. I went through that the other day. I just had so many things going on. All of my resolve was to cry. In like manner, many times we well up inside with emotions that we can't identify, just can't put my finger on it. How I feel is easier to grab anger because I can relate to that. Let's talk about a few more. One of the underlying emotions that we often deal with is shame. Mhm. Is shame. And sometimes it's hard to identify shame. I was telling you about my young man who I taught in the management school. There was a lot of shame about how his household was set up. There was a lot of shame about how his mom was living life, and how it affected and reflected right on his family, his siblings, and there was a lot of shame. But it was hard for him to experience and express the shame, so it came out in anger, and that was the label. And connected to the shame was the bitterness, just the bitterness of how things was going, just the bitterness of how things felt, just the bitterness of what he had to go through. And because bitterness was the underneath what was peeled, bitterness was underneath what he was going through, because bitterness was the true emotion that he couldn't express. It was easier to be angry, to be mad at you, to blame you, to think that the world not only is shortchanged me, shortchanged my family, and that we get to read and to hear and to see what others are going through and what's happening with them, but it's not happening for me. And I'm bitter. I'm bitter at my mom. I'm bitter at my dad. I'm bitter at the school system. I'm bitter. And that bitterness shows itself out as angry. And so we've got to be able to, family, we got to dig into these underlying emotions, address them, identify them, address them, identify them, and address them. And let's be able to talk about some of these things that's happening, because they're showing themselves out as anger. And anger is costing some of us so many things. It's costing us jobs. It's costing us important relationships. It's costing us money. It's putting some of us in court where we have to keep showing up, and we're paying probation officers. We have so many things going on because we're not dealing with the underlying issues that show themselves as anger. Confusion. Confusion is another underlying emotion. Sometimes we just don't know, right? We spoke earlier about children who say, "I don't know, I don't know why that happened." Yeah. So many times confusion is that core underneath the pill, and confusion can show itself out as anger. I don't know what else to do. I'm really I'm in the dark about all of this. I truly don't know what else to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know where to move. I'm unsure about how I feel. Right? My thoughts are so unfocused. It's just difficult for me to concentrate. I'm just having a hard time knowing what to do and what decision to make. And when life comes at me, the only thing I can do is just let it go, and it comes out as anger. So many times we see people and we attribute anger to their situation. We blanket them with that definition of, right, and we blanket them with that identifier. You're just an angry person. They're always angry, but we miss the underlying factors: the anxiousness, the fear, the shame, the bitterness, and sometimes the the confusion. For me, it was depression. That was mine. When they thought as a child that I was an angry child, especially in my high school years, middle school and high school years, I was just depressed. It was just the mood. I was melancholy all the time. It was just my mood, and so much of it had to do with my relationship with my dad, and watching what my mom went through, and so it showed itself out in other areas, in anger, always rebelling, always volatile in responses or reactions, when it showed so much to do with my depression, which was connected to some self-destructive things that I needed to relieve what I was going through. Some of that confusion and bitterness, all those things added to my depression, but they showed themselves out as anger. Today, here on Taking Control, we want to be able to identify some of the feelings that we deal with, and these feelings show themselves out as anger in our lives. Oh man, here's another one: despair. I talk to a lot of people who folks think that they are angry, but they're really dealing with despair. It just seems like things will never get better. It just seems like things are unbearable and they'll never change. It just feels as though um, the world has passed me by and has just spit on me and taken a dump on me. It's I forgot who it was in the Charlie Brown comics. It may have been Pigpen, but it was the guy who had the cloud over his head. Everywhere he went, there was this cloud of despair. What about you today? Have you experienced that feeling and those feelings of futility where you just feel like it's all over? There's no hope. I'm hopeless, but it's showing itself out that I'm just angry at everything. But in reality, when I dig deep inside, when I go inside, I'm realizing that it's really despair. And so what we want to be able to do is deal with and identify these emotions. And again, I want to just let you know as we talk about taking control and expressing and understanding human anger, one of the major issues with human anger that is a umbrella of and even an expression of some unresolved or unidentified emotions that really have nothing to do with anger. Just comes out that way. Detachment, having feelings of being disconnected. I'm not connected to anything, don't belong to a group, not connected really to a family. Relationships are like for other people. I don't have any close relationships. It just seems like I'm just going through life on a daily basis. I'm just going through life, and I'm really detached from feelings of social connection, and I'm detached from strong support. Many times we find people who are, and I deal with them often. I live with them. I support them, hang with them, love them. They feel detached from, not connected to anything. But when you see them and talk to them, there's this appearance of anger. Anger's the mascara. Anger's the makeup. What really is underneath is the feelings are the feelings of being detached from and not a part of anything. Guilt can play a trick. Oh, guilt can play a trick on you. It can play a trick on you. Guilt can show itself as anger, but in reality, it's those feelings that I could have done more, or those feelings that I shouldn't have done that, or the feelings that I may have behaved as a certain way, right? It's my fault. I did it. If it wasn't for me, we wouldn't be here. Many times because we have guilt as an unresolved or unidentified feeling, it shows itself out as anger. I dealt with a lot of guilt. My lived experience as a child, as a young man, I dealt with a lot of guilt. I thought that a lot of my mother and father's issues had to deal with decisions that I made. I was an only son, and it was a lot of maintenance for me. It was a lot of maintenance for my problems and my issues and my challenges. And I dealt with a lot of guilt, especially when my mom and dad argued, because I felt like I was responsible for their issues. It wasn't true. It wasn't true. It was a dysfunctional family, and it wasn't true. But I felt that way. I bore that. I wore that. I carried that guilt, and I showed it so often um, as anger. Sometimes we feel helpless. Sometimes there's helplessness. I've got a couple of notes here. I want to read this to you. Here's what I want to read to you. Helplessness. Things seem out of control. You may think that if you were powerless in situations, then you can't handle anything. This one didn't go well, so woe is me. I can't handle anything. Um, I can't cope with everyday life and those things that are practical about everyday life, and I feel unable to control or manage any of my. I feel helpless. I feel helpless. But by the time I embrace you, it comes back to me as anger because anger is a camouflage for feelings that we have not been able to identify and or express. And helplessness is one. Helplessness is one of those feelings or emotions that people have a tendency. When you talk to people um, who are labeled as angry, when you talk to people who others only see them as angry, you will many times find that when you dig in and have the conversations, they feel helpless. And helplessness is connected to, at times, hopelessness. And that's a tough one for us, gang of mine. That's a tough one for us. We're going to talk about some solutions with this. Another feeling is loneliness. Yeah, I know about that one. And many times we have people who just seem as though they're just going off for no reason. But oftentimes, out of that loneliness and the expression of anger, the result is I'm getting the attention that I didn't get. I'm getting the attention that I really want. I want somebody to see me. I'm so lonely. I just feel so empty. I just feel that this is the only, no one is looking at me. No one knows that I exist. But if I act out, if I show out, if I take this loneliness and show it in such a way, I can get your attention many times. And I say that often because I don't want to overgeneralize, but many times what we're seeing is just loneliness. And it seems like they're so angry and they're so mad. And all they're doing is just wanting somebody to love them, to hug them, to enter their space, or to allow them to give an invitation to come into my space and let's just share life. Let's just talk about life. Sadness, sadness, heartbreak, emptiness. So many of these things we just mentioned: shame, bitterness, confusion, depression, despair, detachment, guilt, helplessness, they all pile up. And when we pile those things on top of someone, sadness, sorrow, heartbreak, failure after failure, bad relationship after bad relationship, no after no after no after no, not here, get away, loss. My humanity has created a gap, sadness. And so these are the things, the feelings, the identifiers, the feelings that we can all have that at the end of the day, they show themselves out to us as anger. Everybody that you see that you think is angry, they're not angry for no reason at all. No matter what the diagnosis, no matter what others say, no matter what is placed upon us, people, me included, have these emotions that are buried underneath, that have been suppressed. Sometimes we can't identify them. We don't know how to express them. So they come out as anger. I would like us today to help us to understand the human emotion called anger. And I want to be able to help us understand that anger is a cover. Anger is a camouflage. Anger, when we cannot identify the true emotions, is the way we express that I'm hungry, that I'm lonely, that I'm sad, that I'm anxious, that I'm ashamed, that I feel guilt. So how do we now move away from using anger as the reaction, using anger as the expression? One is to be honest and to explore. I am a firm believer that we don't spend enough time exploring us. We explore so many other things. That was part of my addiction. I thought I was exploring me. I used those drugs and alcohol to explore what I thought, right, I could and would be. But I also used those drugs and alcohol to hide some of these identifiers because I just thought they were bad things. and they weren't. They were just part of me, and feelings and emotions that I had to deal with. Many of us choose not to deal with these things because they can hurt. Guilt can hurt. Sadness can hurt, and we don't want those pains, and so we mask those pains. But I'm here to tell you, if we could explain, if we could understand who we are and understand some of these things that we're going through, we would better be able to take control of the anger that wants to be the expression. The anger wants to be our dominant. We've talked about this before, our dominant emotion. But you can't anger. You're only one of many. Get in line, buddy. Anger wants to be for us that emotion that it defines us or protects us, because anger is a protector. Anger is that alpha emotion, and wants to protect the rest of us. So, I don't want anybody to know that I feel guilt, so I'm going to protect my guilt brother emotion. No, anger, shh, get in line. Because if we don't identify, if we don't address, if we don't face these other emotions that we have, then anger will take control. Anger is an alpha emotion. It will jump out and just take control. But guess what, anger? You belong to me. I don't belong to you. I'm taking control. So I want to address my fears. So what are you afraid of? List them. Write them down. Let's talk about them. What creates anxiousness in your life? Write them. Put them down. Let's talk about them. What are you ashamed of? What are the things that you find that are shameful in your life? Let's write them down. Let's talk about them. Let's get some supports about them. Let's face them. The bitterness, the anxiousness, the hopelessness, the loneliness. Let's talk about them. Let's get the supports out. Here at Promise Resource Network, we are here to listen with listening ears as peer support specialists. Many of us, most of us, I would say all of us, have dealt with all of the things that we have talked about today, even if we're not still doing it, right? Maybe some of us are still working on some of these things. Recovery is a lifelong process. Wellness is that goal. Recovery is that road, that journey. And we are all in recovery from so many of these things. To identify these true emotions, to identify these true feelings, to find the supports we need from people who have gone through this, have dealt with these things, and to be able to grab hold of some solutions so that anger will not be our alpha emotion and show itself in front of everything else, where people just think that we're angry folks, when in reality, we got all this other stuff happening inside of us that we want to deal with. You know what I mean? Yeah, taking control is about explaining human anger. And one of the things we want to explain today is that underneath, when you peel back and you look inside the core, often it's not an anger issue. There are other issues: fear and shame, helplessness, hopelessness. But what we want to do today, we want to be honest in our recovery. We want to face the things that we're going through. We want to name them, we want to face them, and we want to jump on them and change life for us. We want to take control of our lives, take control of our recovery, take control of our wellness. That's where we are. So just wanted to share those things today. Wanted to talk about identifying those true feelings that are being hidden by anger, and us not going deep enough inside to be able to say, yep, I'm dealing with that. Yep, I want to do something about that, because I don't want to wear this label as an angry person. I don't want anger to close doors for me that God's universe has opened for me. I don't want to lose jobs because of anger. I don't want to lose important relationships because of anger. I want my life situations to benefit me and not create adverse issues for me. And if anger is doing that, if anger is tripping you up, if anger is a barrier, then let's get inside, peel back the anger, and let's look at what's really happening. Let's get the supports that we need. Let's talk to the people who have been there, done that, won against these things, and let's build ourselves up in healing and wellness, okay? 2224 The Plaza. That's where we are. I want you to come down, hang out with us. We got more good stuff every Monday, taking control. Every Monday, 1 o'clock. Come on down. Come on down. Come be a part of the class on site. We're just opening up Promise Resource Network. Tomorrow will be the 1 week anniversary of our reopening. Our classes on site as well as hybrid. We'll still virtual. We'll do a hybrid schedule. We'll have some on site. We'll have some virtual. But we just want to bring wellness and recovery into your life, whether you're here physically or whether we're coming to you. A lot of love. And here's the deal. Also, our warm line. If you can't get to us physically, pick up the phone, 833-390-7728. On the other side of that call will be some certified peer support specialists waiting to talk with you, waiting to listen to you, waiting to hear your heart about whatever's going on. Hey, look, you might be calling to talk about the fact you hit the lottery, or you could be calling to say it's a really tough day or anything in between. But we have people who are ready to hear, share lived experience with you. And let's see if we can work it out that today can be a better day by the time the call ends. Our warm line is free, it's confidential. Nobody's going to go around blabbing your business all over the place. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days. 833-390-7728. Some wonderful people are standing by waiting to hear from you. And don't forget to call our welcome desk. Kim Porter's always manning the welcome desk, 8 to 4:30, 704-390-7709. You just give us a call, talk to Kim. You want to connect with myself, other facilitators, all about our calendar, what's happening to PRN. That's the number to call. Okay? So today, taking control, explaining human anger, and sharing effective response approaches that improve relationships and life situations. That's who we are. That's where we are. And what we want to be able to do is dig in. Let's understand human emotion of anger, because we all have it. But what we want to do is talk about some effective, healthy responses and approaches, because we want to improve relationships and we want our life situations to be delicious. We want the best out of them. Okay? So let's identify those true feelings. Let's work on them. Let's get the supports that we need. And let's keep coming back. Keep coming back, because I'm going to keep having some good stuff for you, right? We don't want our anger to trip us up. We don't want our anger to trip us up. We want to be able to move forward in life with health, with balance, building wellness through the journey of recovery. And for those of us who have always or have allowed or have situations where our anger has tripped us up, we're ready to do some different stuff, ready to do some different things. I love you. This is Aaron. I'm going to shut off just a little bit early. I'll see you next week, 1 o'clock, 2224 The Plaza. You come on down and let's share some things. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.